See if anyone joins, finds the new one. Hi, can you hear me? You are the first person. Hey, Adam. Is my video coming through? Hopefully. I'm just getting some things carried over to this one. Excellent. Very glad to hear that it is coming together. Let me add a quick thumbnail to this so people know that we've just politely scooted over. Gotta love working with technology on the fly. I thank you all for your patience. How's everybody doing? It is a overcast and one of those days that looks like it's going to be raining constantly in Florida. So I think that's one of the unique things of me sitting up here. I'm in one of the skyscrapers here, so that I can see. But I constantly see the rain coming in, and it looks like it is always coming in. But that's not always the case. Let's see. That just saved. Just trying to make sure everything here looks good for us. But glad this part seems to have worked itself out. Now I've got something on my screen. Hey, Tony. Let me delete this old one so people don't accidentally get into it. Anybody on cruise ships? Who's actually out there living the dream right now? Let's see if they were able to tune in. I wish that I was, but in the summer months, I got to take some time off, unfortunately. So I'm actually traveling to North Carolina tomorrow. I'm going to go visit Mom, who I feel like everybody on the channel knows well. By the way, hi, Mom, if you're watching. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to fly out to the coast of North Carolina, get to hang out with Mom for a while. So I'm super stoked about that. My Wi-Fi connection is really slow right now, it looks like, at home. Are you all having a lot of lag? Do I seem choppy, or is it working for you? Something on my end just it doesn't feel quite right. And you can let me know in the comments. Video is choppy. Let's see. I even come and sit in the living room so that I get a little bit better reception, but it seems that is not the case. Hopefully it's not too terribly bad. How choppy is choppy? Because if you're seeing what I'm seeing, it's pretty bad. Let's see if I can change my resolution on this, so at least you don't see the choppiness. I've got it set to auto. Let's bring that down to 20 and see if that does us any good. All right, so this is 720 now. Does this seem any better? Do we need to drop it down to 480, you all? What do you think? Sam just booked a weekend cruise. What'd you book, Sam? I was looking at some today too. So you all know that I monitor cruises very, very closely over here. And I was looking at a few to see what I could get onto for next year. All right, I'm going to look to 480 and see if it does any better. All right, so the resolution probably is going to look bad, but the choppiness seems like it's still there. But it was better at 720, Paul, it seems. Well, this might not be one of my best live streams, but thank you all for hanging in there. It looks like this might be the same as 720, so I'm going to a little bit. There's not too much difference in bandwidth between the two. All right. Independence of the Seas for this summer, September 1. Is that a long weekend sailing, Sam? Or I didn't know that Indy was doing weekend sailings. So that's interesting to me. Hey, George. Who else do we have that's in here? Paul. Tony, we said hello earlier. Michael, always welcome. Jim. All right, hopefully this is gonna sort itself some here. How many cruises do I currently have booked? Let me take a quick look. I honestly don't know. It used to be easy when I only booked Royal Caribbean because when I would log into their website, it would show me you have X number of upcoming cruises, and I don't have that anymore. So for 2000 and I'm looking, I just pulled up my spreadsheet. I really should show you all my spreadsheet one of these days. It's quite intense. So for the remainder of this year, I have, how many is that? 11 more cruises for a total of 46 nights at sea. So I got another, month and a half worth of sailing to still get in the second half of this year. Taking some time off, I'm going to go over to Kenya for one trip. And so that's going to take me a while for a wee little bit. And I don't have much booked in October. I have been monitoring October for ages now. And I don't know if I've just missed the ship or what's going to happen there, but the prices for October, which is peak hurricane season, by the way, the kids are back in school, should be decent prices, and they are not. They are pushing my budget, and so I haven't booked anything there. I've got a few that I'm working on, but we'll see. And then if I go into my 2014 bookings, this is where I spend a lot of time thinking right now and trying to strategize what I would like to do. I've got 14 bookings for 2014 already. Actually, nope, that is 16 bookings in 2024. I'm getting my words all confused. And that is going to be a total of about, I don't have a number on this one. It's a 4-nighter. Looks like my spreadsheet's gotten off. Oh, that's why, because I forget what my spreadsheet is sometimes. So for a total of 73 nights already booked for next year. Hopefully, I won't have to cancel as many. So when I do my year-end recap, things that I think about is, there's a lot of cruises that I wind up having to cancel this year. So I didn't stay at sea as much as I would want. And I also do have 2025 already in the calendar. So I've got 2 cruises booked in January of 2025 because the Celebrity Silhouette is going to start doing weekend sailings, which still blows my mind that a celebrity cruise ship, a premium cruise line, is getting in the booze cruise game. I don't know how that's going to work out for everybody. I'm really excited to see what the crowd on this ship is going to be like. It's out of Port Everglades, so I've got to go up to Fort Lauderdale. So that's honestly the main reason why I've not booked every single one of these. It's also doing Bahamas and Key West, which I think is an amazing itinerary. And I was able to get some of these studio cabins because I'm booking all the way out in 2025 at a decent price. But I haven't booked more of these, honestly, because I don't want to go to Fort Lauderdale. Like, I moved to Miami for a reason, right? I've got cruise ships. They're literally right there. It's 4:15. We'll probably hear the sail away signal going off pretty soon here. So I don't want to have to pay for Ubers to take me to Fort Lauderdale to get on cruise ships. But I imagine that's what I'm going to wind up having to do. 2025, there's also not a lot of, they call it deployment in the cruise ship industry. So when they tell us where the cruise ships are going to go and they extend their schedule, that's part of a deployment calendar. Where are they deploying their ships to? And a lot of folks have not made that all the way through 2025 just yet. And interestingly, there's some really short, for those of you who like the older ships, me in particular, the Voyager of the Seas, I've actually got them on my watch list for 2025. They've got a few 4 nights, it looks like, where they're going to be leaving on Thursday, coming back in on Monday morning. So something that you all might just want to keep a close eye on there. This is a 3-day, September 1 to September 4. How many future cruises? Hey, Steve Crofton, thank you. I hope the video is getting better. It seems like it's talking very, very, very quickly. I would show this sheet, Michael, the spreadsheet that I've made. It is absolutely nothing to write home about. It is color-coded, but it's got all my confirmation numbers on it. So I'm probably not going to put that up there unless I go through and really streamline it some. Did I book Utopia of the Seas? Michael, let's get into Utopia. So that is something that I definitely wanted to chat with you all today about. Let me know in the comments who all did book the inaugural sailing, who's got a Utopia cruise booked so far. I took a look at the prices. Like, I was online probably at 7 a.m. that morning. I feel like the cruises came out at midnight. I feel like that's normally when they come out, as soon after. And I looked at it first thing in the morning and could not believe the amount they are charging for a 4-night cruise. First of all, I was really kind of ticked off that the inaugural cruise was not a weekend cruise. They are starting her on a Monday, not on a weekend. So even if I went on the inaugural cruise, it's not a weekend cruise. And that's not a day that I can get away and make it to the ship. So that kind of annoyed me a little bit. And my video still looks, like it's killing me over here. Worse somehow or another. Let's see if I adjust it a little bit more and see if that comes through. Maybe the weather outside's impacting it. But that was my thoughts on Utopia. I looked at a few more of them. The prices, I looked at it. If you want to get on the inaugural right now, if you went to book it today, you're going to be paying for double occupancy in an interior room for 4 nights for $2,800 plus taxes, which is just insane to think about. The balconies, interestingly enough, this is one of the other pricing strategy Royal likes to use every now and again to convince people to buy more balconies and to spend more money. It's only $3,200 to get into a balcony. So for $400 difference, you can get into a balcony at double occupancy. So probably more people would wind up booking that. I mean, you've already spent $2,800. What's another $400, right? Again, a marketing strategy that gets into our head. I forget the name of that marketing strategy, but there is one where you've already spent so much money. What is spending just a little bit more at that point? And I will say that the prices look like they continue to rise. So if you have not locked in your Utopia sailing, call your travel agent, get on the phone and book the Utopia. If that's something that you want to do, those prices are going to continue to go up, I think. I can't guarantee or promise what they're going to do, but I can say the inaugural has certainly gone up since it launched on Thursday. And I think we're going to start seeing that for the other ones. As inaugural prices people out and fills up, we're going to start seeing those other first sailings start to do the exact same as well. What I would say, though, if you want to save a little bit of money or try to save a little bit of money on Utopia, is start looking to what I was just talking about earlier with cruise prices. Look towards September. That's where you finally see an interior cabin come under the $1,000 mark for a weekend sailing, which is still very, very high. So for comparison on all of this, if you're looking at coming on our group cruise, so we've got the group cruise hopefully coming up November 3rd with no complications. Links are down in the description below if you want to join us on that. You can still get on that for a lot less money than the Utopia, and it is a very similar ship, and you don't have to wait until next year. And by the way, you'd be sailing with some awesome people. So if you're not signed up for the Weekend Cruisers Group Cruise, would love to have you consider this a personal invitation to come and join us. I think that it would be a fantastic time. The more the merrier. And the Allure of the Seas is going to have plenty of space for us. Even if the Utopia would have done its inaugural sailing on a weekend, I would not have done a weekend cruise because I would not want to ask you all to spend that kind of money to come on a cruise. I don't think that it's worth it. I'll let the newness wear off a little bit, work out some of the kinks, and I'll look at one of those days in September to get one of those booked, Michael. But I am going to hang tight for right now. One thing that I did think was interesting is the solarium suite on Utopia. So I did a little bit of research on that, not too terribly much, but it is going to be a star class suite. So they are looking at that as being a really high-end tier of ship, and it'll be at the very front. So when you know where the wings on the Oasis class, I call them wings, that out hang a little bit. I feel like I'm flying away here. But the wings of the cruise ship, that's kind of where it looks like it's going to be. And you're going to have that area as your private balcony. I don't know if people are going to be able to see in. If you're going to be a floor up, I would hope that there is some privacy to that area. But you're going to have the big glass barriers up front to protect you from the wind, which I think will be pretty neat. But it is priced accordingly. It's going for the same price as an Aqua Suite 2-bedroom. So it's in that same ballpark if that's what you're looking for. I think it's probably going to be a very solid room. I'd love to stay in it one of these days if I can find a good group who will split the cost with me. Steve, you got your transatlantic booked on the Symphony. That is something I've never been able to do. I'm limited to weekends, and I talked about this on the last live. Vacation time and money, those are the two things that limit me in life right now. And transatlantics would eat up all of my vacation time to do just one sailing. And so as great as a deal as you can get on transatlantics, they can be really, really well priced. I just haven't brought myself to do it yet because it means I've got to give up so much other things to be able to have, 8 sea days in a row, for instance. And I'm just not there yet. So I'm sticking to the weekend cruises and hoping that they go well. October is fall break, Karen. That is a good point. You still don't see a lot of kids, I feel like, not like the spring break. I think, and I don't know if that's a parent thing or whatnot, but fall break in October is for a lot of kids. I think they try to do it around Halloween maybe, or maybe a little bit before. I haven't seen a ton of kids, but I would not be surprised if that is a new Royal Caribbean strategy. We'll be able to see Kids Sail Free probably coming out very soon on that. The weekend sailings on Celebrity, I'm really interested in those too, Sam. That's going to be neat to see how they come together. And if I'm not careful, I'll probably wind up booking more of them, especially if I can keep getting that studio cabin for a half decent price. It is a little bit more expensive in what I saw, so it'll be neat to see how it plays out for its first one. And Tony, Emma did her 3-day Celebrity cruise over in the UK. And I mean, a weekend cruise is going to be a booze cruise. Like whether you say that it's a premium cruise line or you're going on, Margaritaville of the Sea for just 2 days, it is going to be a booze cruise. Freedom of the Seas was, Liberty of the Seas was. Allure of the Seas, I think it's going to be really interesting when the first Oasis class is dedicated to a 3-night weekend sailing to see how much of a party ship a massive Oasis class ship is going to turn into. Just having that large of a ship creates its own challenges for turning people that quick. They've got 7,000 people that they're going to be bringing on and off that ship every 3.5 days, which is crazy to think about. And they're all going to live their best life and have an awesome party time. So it'll be really curious to see how that plays out for us. But I'm looking forward to Celebrity as well. Sam, I am not hardwired into the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is actually over there a little bit. It's not that far. I think that it might just be part of skyscraper living where the signal's not that great right now. So it's not really allowing me to do much, unfortunately. I have like a hotspot, but I don't think even if I switch to that, it would do much better, and then I'd lose my connection. Christine, I agree with you on Utopia of the Seas. Definitely look further out. Let the newness wear off a little bit. Like going on these new ships comes at a premium. And so I think let them figure it out. And there's also one thing that I think of is when you're going on these inaugural sailings, especially if it's just a 4-nighter, if that sailing gets canceled, there's a possibility of that. You're kind of out of luck because you might not be able to do the inaugural a week later. So you have risk when you take the very first inaugural sailing from operation risk. That team just got together. I know from the people that are being asked to go to Utopia, they're bringing together an amazing group of crew members to be able to staff that ship. But you're still going to have a lot of new people who are figuring it out, and it's going to have a whole new workflow that they may not be accustomed to. So when the crew takes out a ship for the first time, they're learning how everything operates on that ship. So I'm not opposed to doing another sailing. Michael, we've got plenty of Spirit Airlines and JetBlue tickets from Boston down here to South Florida. I used to do that run all the time. They might not get you here on time, but they'll get you here for a decent price some days. I hope the prices do settle down as well. Very expensive. Karen, that's funny on the turbulence. Looking like I'm hitting turbulence. I don't know how to fix it. I've lowered the bandwidth as far as I can. It's not working out well. But we'll keep it going. So thank you all for hanging with me. The suite over the bridge does look amazing. Christian, what is the best solo cruise? This is one that somebody asked in the comments the other day. It depends. I mean, your best solo cruise is going to depend on you. The few things that it comes down to, I think for price, if you are looking to be a budget conscious solo cruiser, which I'm falling more into that bucket as time goes on, you can't beat MSC. MSC is going to have the best single supplement or non-single supplement rates that are out there. You can book weekend sailings on MSC as a solo cruiser in an interior cabin still for $300 plus taxes. So you're looking at $400 all in. It is not bad at all. And so for that kind of experience, for that price, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of quality to still be on a cruise ship and save some money. If you're then looking at, let's say, Norwegian, they've got their own suite sections that they have where they have their studio cabins. And if you can get one of those are pretty nice. And they have like a little lounge that you can mix and mingle if you are a solo cruiser who wants to mix and mingle. A lot of people think us solo cruisers are extroverts by nature. And that's not necessarily the case. Oftentimes, we might just want to get away and not talk to people and not be extroverted. So that could definitely be a thing as well. But I'll say the one that caters most to solo cruisers is probably the more expensive one, and that's going to be Virgin Voyages that I just got off of. They do have some studios there that have a reduced single supplement, but it is not eliminated. I just looked at one sailing for later this year for them, and you'll save about $300 by going into their studio room. But the reason I say they catered the most to it is they have a solo meet and greet the very first night. You play a trivia game, you get to meet people. They have a hosted dinner for solos. They have hosted meetups. There's a lot of entertainment-led activities for solo cruisers if you're looking to meet other people. And having it entertainment-led or led by the entertainment staff is really important. If you have an unled event, chances of it being a flop are pretty high. So you got to have somebody that takes the lead of the group and kind of forces you to get to know each other. Solo cruisers don't necessarily just walk up to be like, hey, I see you're by yourself. Me too. I say that. I've probably had that happen before, but it's an awkward experience. But by having somebody there to facilitate the conversation and bring people in together, I think does a really cool job. So I would say Virgin for the experience, for cost MSC, and then even Royal does have some studio rooms, but be careful when you're looking at Norwegian and Royal for studio cabins because their prices for those often will be higher than just getting an interior and paying full double occupancy. So just make sure you're watching out there. And also, if your budget is very high, you can do one of the luxury cruise liners. Often they don't charge a single supplement because you're already paying $10,000 to get on for 5 nights anyway. So they don't normally drive it in too hard. Sam, glad you did the MSC status match. Hope you watched the video to walk you through that. MSC status match is a really nice thing. They've got some perks on there that I really like. They allowed me as a Pinnacle member from Royal to go into their black tier on their Voyager program, they call it. And with that, I get a free specialty restaurant, I get chocolates, I get champagne, I get a discount on the cruise fare. There's a lot of really cool stuff that they get. And for a 3-night sailing, like you can't go wrong with a free specialty restaurant. What other cruise bloggers am I friends with? I've met a lot of cruise bloggers, Michael, out in the wild, I call it. So on a cruise ship, at an island, I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of them. I wouldn't say that I'm close friends with a lot of cruise bloggers, for instance. I know we've got Fraser that's on here, who is also a cruise blogger as well. Fraser, say hi in the comments so everybody can find you. I also am good friends with Jared and Jordan. I actually knew them prior to being a cruise blogger and prior to them being in cruise blogging. So I've known those guys for a long time now, and they are good friends of mine. But outside of that, I wouldn't say that I have good friends. I'll chat with Emma every now and again. Emma Cruises is a big advocate for the other cruise vloggers that are out there. She's very kind in that and often supports the channel. You may have seen her. She's popped into the live stream here every now and again to say hello. So those are the ones that I really stay more in touch with. But interestingly, I don't recognize some cruise vloggers when we're out and about. Every now and again, I will. I met a lot of them when Wonder of the Seas did its inaugural sailing. I was not on the inaugural sailing, too expensive, and I didn't get invited from the social media team. No hard feelings. But I was on Freedom of the Seas and we went to Coco Cay in Nassau with him on that very first cruise. And so I got to meet a lot of the vloggers that were there covering the wonder of the seas. And so that's where I met a lot of people at, but those are probably the main ones that I keep up with. Christian, Virgin would be a better experience if you were a solo cruiser to meet people and have fun. And, you know, I've made a lot of videos recently on Virgin voyages. So my Royal Caribbean people, thank you for hanging in there with me. I joke and I say sometimes I want to make you fall in love with a cruise ship. And then sometimes my videos need to tell you that that cruise ship is not for you. That is not where you need to go. Because I want to make sure wherever you are cruising that you're going to have an amazing time. And I recognize that Royal's not for everybody. Virgin's not for everybody. And so if I can lay those cards out and say, where are you going to enjoy? I'm going to do that. But Virgin, I am finding, and I've been on 3 5-nighters now. They are a party cruise through and through. So they are attracting a demographic of people who enjoy having a good time. It's very high energy. They like to dance. They have a good time. Their dance parties on there are better than any Club Red event that I've been to in Studio B on Royal Caribbean, even on a weekend sailing. Those people are there for a reason, and they have such a good time. Interestingly, they don't even have a drink package. And people are just, you know, still having a blast even without that. So I think Virgin is a really good place to meet people. It's a very social atmosphere. So I would recommend giving that a try, recognizing it's going to be at a higher price point. The other downside to it is I think the main dining room may be a little bit more, don't hold me to this, more conducive to solo cruisers. It doesn't feel as awkward versus if you go on Virgin Voyages and all the smaller restaurants when you sit by yourself, it feels a little bit more awkward, at least to me. But they've got spots where you can kind of get away and not feel awkward if you kind of plan it out or scope it some. And that's just me thinking out loud on that one. Hey, Art, do I purchase travel insurance through RCL or private insurer? Interestingly enough, somebody turned me onto this. I think I've had it for 2 years now. I do not go through the cruise lines. I don't need the bells and whistles for the most part of trip cancellation, lost baggage, delays. There's all these, I call them bells and whistles. It's an insurance product, right? And so they're layering things on so that you feel like you get more value out of it. When my biggest concern and the biggest medical expense you may run into is medical related. So if you are looking for just medical insurance, which is honestly all that I wanted, chances are I'm not canceling a cruise. I will be on that cruise come, you know, a flood or any, you know, severe weather issues. I'm going to be on that cruise ship. Like I'm not missing my cruise ship for no reason. So I'll be there. But if I get injured and I'm in a foreign country or I'm in a foreign port and I need some kind of medical attention, I want to make sure that I am, number one, covered to have good private coverage wherever I may be, and that I can be evacuated from whatever country I'm in if that is necessary. Luckily, I am, you know, a 40-year-old, fairly healthy individual, but accidents happen all the time. Things happen. I have seen so many people injured on cruise ships. I think that I'm a little jaded that, you know, I will eventually wind up being injured on a cruise ship. And so I buy an annual policy through Geo Blue. It took me a second to remember who it is. Geo Blue is a subset of Blue Cross Blue Shield. And they offer only medical coverage when you are traveling, and it is an annual plan, and it is a fraction of the cost of an annual plan if you want all those extra bells and whistles, which I don't necessarily care for. I'm willing to self-insure some of the trip delays, lost baggage, all that great stuff. I'm willing to self-insure that, but it's the medical side of the house where I really want to make sure that I'm going to be covered. And so I've got that on an annual policy. And luckily, I have never had to use it, so I cannot vouch for how good of a processing or claims department they have. But that's who I go through. Tony, looks like you're also with GeoBlue. I think they are definitely a good company to go with. So check them out if you are interested. I might actually should get an affiliate link, see if I can talk about their products a little bit. How's the video doing out of curiosity? On my end, it still looks kind of crappy. Are you all seeing it kind of choppy as well? And if it is, would it be helpful, just thinking outside the box here, do I need to just turn the video off and just have like a podcast, a live podcast? Is that a thing? Or if you like seeing, my smiling face, I totally understand that too. But let me know in the comments if it's just, let me just ditch the whole camera concept at this point. I'm going to try actually just ditching it quickly. I'm going to turn it off, see if I can find a way to reset it. Just doesn't like me right now. Hey, my pleasure, Art. Let's see if I turn it back on. No, and now my color's kind of off. Oh. All right, let's keep chatting though. This color thing's gonna kill me. Let me see if I can fix that. What's going on here? All right, there's that back. Is it working? I think we may have fixed it. Let me not talk too soon. Choppiness, choppiness. Look at that, is a smooth sailing. And my camera resolution's on auto. So, Paul, you got used to the choppiness. Sam, I need to research that some, but I think that it's just the service. I mean, I pay for what I thought was decent upload speed. I think I paid for 50 megabits. I've been looking, and I'm not a technology person, and this is non-cruise related, but I probably feel like I need to do one of those home networking systems where you can put the routers throughout the house. But I don't know what changed. I turned it off and turned it back on, and it's coming through pretty nice right now. So I will certainly take this. Thank you all for sticking with me through that. That was painful for me, but I can only imagine on your end how bad that was as well. So one thing I wanted to chat through too was the video I made on Mama's recommendation on Virgin Voyages. So that's one where we had a really fun time making that video. So I hope that you enjoyed it. It's funny, I was talking to Mom, and hopefully she doesn't mind me telling the story on her. I called her up and said, hey, I want to do a video on your experience. Like, I'm getting a lot of requests to hear, what did you think of Virgin Voyages? Because, you're a different demographic. Like, would you be into that? And she initially thought that, I was asking her to come on camera and to have a talking video with me. And I mean, she was just exasperated and blown away with the concept that she would go on. She just could not see herself going on camera to talk about Virgin Voyages and to be pushed out to all of you. She was fine. I did get her permission with the pictures and the movie that I showed of her. And I think that video turned out really, really well. So I'm glad that you all in the comments had the foresight to ask her opinion and that she was willing to share that. So thank you, Mom, for volunteering, being voluntold to do that interview so I could report out on your experience. It's funny, even when we were on the ship, I started kind of asking her what her opinion was and if she felt comfortable. And, she would reference the younger age and the party crowd that was there. And I said, it'd be funny, like this is, your first sailing. She hadn't been on a cruise ship since probably 2016 when we were on the Explorer of the Seas. I said, it'd be funny. I was like, for our next adventure, we should flip the tables on this one, flip the script. Like, let's go on Holland America. Let's go on Viking Cruise Lines. And then I can feel like the younger person. Granted, people tell me that their demographics are changing. It's not that senior anymore. But I think that would be a really interesting side-by-side comparison on, she's the one who feels out of place. And then maybe I'm the one who feels out of place on the next sailing. I think that would just be really neat. And Sam, thank you for liking that video. That was a lot of fun for me to make as well. So I'm taking Mom back on another cruise. So we're going to be hitting the Mediterranean. I have convinced Mom to leave the country and go on a cruise ship. So she is very trusting of her son. And I think this is showing that. But we're going to be boarding Explorer of the Seas with my niece as well. So I'll be able to get a younger person's view as well of Explorer. on the September 2nd Greece cruise. Initially, we had Montenegro thrown in there, and I'm disappointed that they've canceled that on me now, that we're not going to be going to Montenegro. So that kind of is disappointing. I wanted to get another country in there, but I will still make it to not Monte Cristo, Montenegro to check out that country. But I think it'll be really interesting. Get Mom back on a Royal Caribbean ship, and then maybe hear her thoughts on Virgin Voyages versus Royal Caribbean, because you all know my thoughts. Like, I like both of these cruise lines. They have their positives and their negatives. But it's interesting when I talk about either one having positive or negatives, people think that it's now, my go-to cruise line, or that I'm switching lines. And I think that I've come to a very happy understanding that I like a lot of cruise lines. And I look forward to going on a lot of cruise lines. There's so many options out there. There's so many different things to try and to experience. I feel fortunate that I don't want to say that I'm not loyal to Royal, but I got over the mentality that I had to sail only Royal Caribbean. I think that I am a happier person now by changing up that experience, by seeing what other cruise lines have, because they all have unique and different things to offer. And so I've been really impressed being able to float around and see some others. And I haven't been on a ton of them. I've been on still Royal Caribbean a lot, Virgin, one Celebrity so far. And I've done MSC a few times. I've got a lot more Virgin coming up, Celebrity coming up, and a lot of MSC, of MSC. But just because the price is so good, like, again, I'm booking cruises for $300, and I'm not one to pass up a good deal. I don't want to say that I am, trying to get goodwill prices for a cruise, but those are just really good prices, and I gotta gobble those up. The other thing that I wanted to chat through, did you all see the video on this thunderstorm that came up on Independence of the Seas in Port Everglades? So if you haven't seen it, I'm sure that it's in all the Facebook groups. It's on the intrawebs. I don't post, or I'm not going to pull that up on here simply because I don't know what the use rights are, whose video it is, and I don't want to get caught up in all that. But that was a crazy event that happened on that cruise ship and was captured from multiple different angles on the ship. They say that the storm came up really, really quick. I kind of scratch my head and go, it's a storm. Like, it can only come up so quick, I would think. How so many people were caught off guard by that storm is alarming, I would say. So imagine you're on a cruise ship. It's time for sail away. You're getting close to sail away. Where are you at? You are on the pool deck at the sail away party, or you're on the deck directly above watching the actual sail away, pulling away from the port. And that's where everybody was. We know that that is where 80% of the cruise passengers are at sail away, and at this time of day. The place was packed with people everywhere. And you could see the rain coming. And you would have thought the rain would have scared them away, but I don't think that they realized how much wind was in the storm that was coming up. And I mean, the videos on it are crazy to watch. On deck chairs, for instance, flying all over the place. People are, really streaming towards the entrance. They're coming inside, but everybody's out there that, it's tough for them to move through. There's not a lot of space. Deck chairs start flying. It blocks some access. There's even deck chairs from deck, what is that, I guess, deck, you can tell I haven't been on Freedom in a bit, from deck 12 to deck 11, so that upper deck, the sun deck, chairs were flying off of it and crashing onto the deck below, hitting a few people. I hope everybody was okay. Some people were pushed over by the wind. If your mobility was not good, the wind was blowing people over, and they were literally just sliding down the walkway. Chairs still flying everywhere, hitting people. Not a great experience, but how does that happen? I mean, that nobody had the foresight to say, that's a storm. We might want to see if we can get people inside, or, I don't know if there is an alarm for that per se. I don't think that there's a code that the captain would call, but they could certainly make an announcement. And I don't know if that happened or did not happen, but for so many people to be caught off guard by this storm, and I know some people more than likely were probably injured, but just because of the severity of it, I don't know how that came to be or happened. Like, how did nobody realize, hey, there's a storm coming. I might not want to be on, the 12th deck of a cruise ship right now when this comes through. So just my personal thoughts on some of that. The video, again, if you haven't seen it, very dramatic. Hope that I do not ever get caught in a storm like that. Or, if I do, I'm up in the Viking Crown Lounge with all the windows looking down like the videographer was to capture some of the footage, to see the storm and in a safe place. Storms from the Viking Lounge, by the way, it's one of the best places to see a storm off in the distance or when the ship is going through one. There was one night, and I posted this as a short, and it's done fantastic, of a bad lightning storm. We had it like 3 in the morning, maybe even 4 in the morning on a cruise ship. So I left the cabin. I took my camera and I went walking around the ship at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to get some really good footage of this thunderstorm that was happening. And it's a ghost town. I mean, the cruise ships in the middle of the night like that, not talking about like 2:30 when people are leaving the bars, but literally when there is nobody out there except for a few deck hands and people cleaning up, it is a completely different experience on the cruise line. This is funny. One person that I was chatting with online said, I didn't even realize that you could walk around, the ship at any hour of the night. Like, I thought you had to stay in your room, which is not the case. I mean, if you get bored at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, you can go walking around. You can go lay out in a chair if you want to. If you fall asleep, they may ask you to go to your room. Don't ask me how I know. But they will wake you up and try to migrate you to the place that you need to be. That is a story for another time. Actually, there may be 2 or 3 stories in there. But that is a story for another time. So Tony, looks like you're going to try MSC. I keep forgetting that I have this option. I can put you all in the comment section here so we can see the comment that I'm referencing. MSC in January on the seashore. That's one that I am actually watching for next year. I think there's one in June and September for the seashore. It is not a true weekend sailing. It is a 3-night sailing that leaves on Thursday, goes to Nassau, and then Ocean Cay, or Ocean Key in their case, which I think is an awesome experience. And I can book those still for $300 to $400. I think the June 21st one was going for $500 when I checked it earlier today out of Canaveral. And that's still not a bad price. I priced it up against what Freedom of the Seas would be if I did the same weekend and just stayed in Miami. And it's going to wind up being a wash probably. So if I pay $500 to go up to Canaveral, I've got to rent a car. I normally get a hotel room the night before if I don't drive up the morning of, which is just exhausting. So it's about the same price as a wash, but that is, I want to get on either the Seashore, Seaside, Seaview of MSC because that's their newer and larger class of ship. And I think they've done a really good job. Like the ships look beautiful out in the wild. So I want to give them a try just to see what it is like. And what I'm trying to do more on the channel too is more full ship tours. You all have been very complimentary and the views show it for the full ship tours that I do. And that is something that I put off for ages. I can't tell you how long I put off doing my first full ship tour. I think that I was at least at the year mark of making videos before I ever broke down and went, fine, I'll do a full ship tour. It never made my list of something that I wanted to do because I think I'd seen so many videos that I just didn't think were good. Like I don't personally like watching a ship tour. There's sometimes that I will, but for the most part, I'm not going to watch a ship tour. I just want to go on the ship and I'll explore it myself. So I didn't know how to create it in a way that was going to be engaging and be interactive. But I've learned that, it's, to me at least, it's not about just showing the ship. It's talking about how am I utilizing the spaces? What are the tips that I've come up with? What's the advice for this room? What's a really good food item I can eat here? Those kind of things that I try to filter in that I think make a lot of difference. Also, my gimbal that I bought helps out with the balancing or the smoothness. I think the first few that I made without that gimbal was just, the camera was all over the place. So I'm glad that I got that figured out. Paid a little bit of money for the gimbal, but I think that it has been a very welcomed addition as those are some of my most popular videos. Month over month are the full ship tours. So I'd like to do more of those. So as unique ships, different ships that I've not been on, start doing, sailings that I can get on, AKA short sailings, I'm going to try to do that. They were clueless, Art. And that's what I've heard from everybody is nobody seemed to know that storm was coming. And everybody's like, oh, the storm came up quick. Does the storm really come up that quick? I feel like somebody would have seen something and put it together, and I don't know. I have questions. George, I'm going to agree with you on, anytime you go to a new cruise line, I think MSC is no exception to this. Check your expectations. If you're like me, you're going to be comparing everything to the ship that you sail the most, which for me, Royal Caribbean. So if you go to MSC, a lot of people think that it is a step down, and I probably would agree with that it is a step down from Royal Caribbean. But the trade-off is you can save several hundred, if not thousands of dollars by taking, I'll say, a slight step down. So go with an open mind, have a great time, and you're going to enjoy yourself. But yes, you do want to make sure that you're always, and that's good advice, George, keeping expectations in check when you try something new, because it's not always an amazing experience or what you're accustomed to. So, Tony, the Yacht Club is something I would love to cover. I think that that's probably, for MSC at least, the most requested video that I get is, Brandon, can you do a video on the Yacht Club? I have heard that it has saved the day and is an amazing experience in the Yacht Club and is much different than the traditional non-Yacht Club sections. I would love for the folks and powers that be at MSC, to maybe upgrade me. I'm fine with that, or some other work you do where I can have access to what makes the Yacht Club the Yacht Club. So I'm probably going to, be reaching out to them to see what we can work out, because that is absolutely the most requested video that I'm getting these days is, how's the Yacht Club? What do you think of the Yacht Club, Brandon? And I'm like, I've been coming to MSC to save money, so I'm in the interior cabin for 3 nights at $300. Yacht Club is a little bit more pricey, but still, compared to other suites on other cruise lines, it's not really that bad. It is a very good price. Sam's asking about what are the best perks for a suite like the owner suite for weekend sailings. So let's talk about, he's referencing there a room that is on Royal Caribbean, and so that is the owner suite. So if you're on Royal Caribbean and you are in a suite for a traditional ship, so we're going to say Freedom class and under, you're going to have the Grand Suite is going to be your first suite where the perks start, owner suite, and then you're going to have the Royal Suite. You're going to have like a 2-bedroom Grand in there as well. Those are the suites that are going to come with suite privileges. If you are in a junior suite, you all know that I love a junior suite. It is not going to come with any of those benefits. I don't even know why they call it a suite. I think they're just trying to say that it's a extra large balcony is really what it winds up being, or extra large, spacious ocean view balcony cabin. It's not that the balcony is larger, it's that the room is larger, but it doesn't come with any perks other than the espresso machine inside of it. But the other ones is where you can get the suite perks. For weekend sailing, I think the biggest benefit that you're going to get is going to be on Oasis class. That's where you're going to have access to Coastal Kitchen. So you will get an enhanced food option and a different environment to dine in. You're also going to be able to have that food delivered directly to your stateroom, which if you want to have breakfast outside or you want to have dinner on your balcony at sunset, that's something that you can do with good food delivered to you. That is my personal preference. If you've not been on a cruise before, you're going with a family and you need a lot of planning support, you're also going to have access to the Suite Lounge. And that's going to come with a concierge to really help and support you even before the cruise. So if you want dinner reservations, you want to do certain things like that, you're going to get that with your Suite Concierge. In that lounge, you're also going to have free drinks. So you do actually get free alcohol drinks in the Suite Lounge from 5 to 8 o'clock on most ships. And they're going to have a little bit of nosh, some food that you can get. Those are the biggest perks that I find people take the most advantage of. So Steve, I mean, this is a ironic call out, right? So for those of you that don't know, Royal Caribbean for what, 3 years, maybe 4 years, had a meteorologist on staff. And so you could watch him in your cabin. He'd come on and talk about the tropics. He'd be on their website. They actually just let him go not too long ago. But I did see where I think that they've got that job posted again. So I don't know if there was lost love there or what happened with James. Did not know James. I reached out to him, when was this? probably but pre-COVID when there's a storm coming through. And I said, hey, I'd love to interview. Actually, no, it would have been that long ago because I've only been doing this channel 2 years. I reached out to him when there was a storm coming anyway and said, hey, I want to interview you. Let's talk about this storm. You mind coming on the channel? Never heard back, and that's fine. I'm sure that he gets a ton of people who are probably emailing him about that storm. But they did have it looked like it was posted online again to be hired for. So maybe it could have been avoided if they would have had a meteorologist, maybe not, or somebody dedicated just to him. Who knows how that goes? Tony, I think that you're referencing the $900 including Wi-Fi and drinks for the yacht club experience for a 3-night cruise. That is not a bad price at all for a yacht club sailing, or that's not bad at all. To get into a junior suite on Royal Caribbean, you're paying at least that and then some to make that experience happen. Marcina, would I ever try Carnival? And you specifically call out some of their newer ships here. I keep watching Carnival. I keep seeing if there's a cruise that I can go on, because I think that, it'd be just a really fun experience, if nothing else, to be able to see what is it like. And I talked about this a couple of times before, but I feel like Carnival, for whatever reason, is polarizing. It's almost like politics. People either love it or hate it. They either have a really high opinion of it or they have a really low opinion of it. I haven't found many people that are like, yeah, Carnival's okay, take it or leave it, it's fine. And so I'd really love to go on there and just kind of see what's all the hoopla about. Like, what is making people feel this way about Carnival, where it goes in 2 different directions. And from what I hear, I feel like there's sometimes different worlds when it comes to Carnival. You've got their older ships that are running for more of the regional home ports, not necessarily in the Florida area, that I think have one vibe to them. And then you're going to have these new ships that you're talking about here, the Celebration, the Jubilee, the Mardi Gras, ships that people rave about online. And Carnival, by the way, has a really strong YouTube following. So I don't know if you all have ever, seen the Carnival folks. There's a ton of folks that follow Carnival and are diehard Carnival fans on YouTube. But with that, would I try it? I would. My issue that I keep running into with this, Marcina, is I look at the Conquest a lot. The Conquest is the biggest one I look at because it does the weekend sailings from Miami, right out my front door, the same exact time that Freedom of the Seas or Royal Caribbean is doing their weekend sailing. And so I look at the Conquest, I say, oh, I could do that. And then I look over at Freedom and I go, it's the same price. And for the same price, I've just been choosing Freedom of the Seas where I've got status and, there's nothing that I see that's going to be that different to it. But I'm not opposed to it. My very first sailing, surprisingly enough, was on the Carnival Fantasy back in 2009 out of New Orleans. It was my very first cruise. Still to this day, the rockiest cruise I have ever been on. So I am not opposed to it, Marcina. I just haven't figured out a way to make it work yet. And to an extent, I think about this channel too. The YouTube channel does drive a few of my decisions. And I don't want to be a Carnival vlogger. If I went there, it'd be more of a one-time where I do a Carnival series and then I probably would move on. Maybe comparing Carnival to Royal Caribbean, to Virgin Voyages, or to MSC. Carnival, Royal, MSC probably make the most sense. To group those together, do a comparison video, say what's it like. It's almost like a Brandon tries Carnival kind of situation. But I don't see myself personally going there long term, and some of that's because of the channel. I want to intentionally focus in on a few cruise lines, and you probably can tell which ones those are at this point. Royal Caribbean, Virgin Voyages, Celebrity, and MSC. And so that's really where I'm focusing a lot of my energy, is on those 4 cruise lines. I still look at the other ones, and I think that it'd be neat to go on them, but that's not something that I push or seem to prioritize too much. So Quackson, you're asking about quirks. Did you anticipate for your MSC cruise, but want to let people know? The website check-in process, not ideal. So if you're doing a weekend cruise, first of all, know that it doesn't have a mobile app. So MSC is, you all may remember this on Royal Caribbean, and I'm sure other cruise lines went through it. When they're growing their mobile technology, they're growing their mobile app. Not every ship has it just yet. It's only rolled out to certain ones. And it was not on the ship that I had. And so that was kind of an issue to start with. I think that I definitely have got to where I prefer having everything in the palm of my hand. Gone are the days for me of taking a picture of the cruise compass and then leaving the room, because I just forget to do that. The biggest quirk that they do there is the way that they process your credit cards. So you can put a credit card on file beforehand and it'll pre-authorize it, but you then have to manually walk up to a kiosk, and they've got them scattered throughout their common areas, and actually tap in and tell it you're good expensing whatever the amount is to your credit card or debit card that is on file. The process is just awkward. It doesn't take long. And interestingly enough, this is something that I found out the hard way. Luckily, I didn't have that much of an expense. I think my bill for MSC was like $8, so it wasn't bad. But they charge an international fee. So apparently they're not charging in US dollar. I don't know what they charged in, but for my credit card, it converted automatically to US dollar. And then because I was using actually my debit card, I got charged a transaction fee for the international conversion to happen. So something just to be aware of. Make sure if you're going, put down a card that does not have a fee for international transactions. I didn't anticipate that. I was assuming it was here in the US and it would do US dollar, but it doesn't. I guess it does it in euro probably, if I had to guess. But very similarly, if you go to Greece, like we're gonna go on a Mediterranean cruise in September, Royal Caribbean's gonna charge me in US dollar when I'm over there. That's not a concern. The only place I've seen that be a concern was here on MSC. That's the biggest quirk that I probably saw there. The other good one, we talked about this earlier, make sure you're doing status match. If you've got a hotel program, you've got other loyalty programs with a cruise line, make sure you watch the video on how to do a status match with MSC. Don't miss out on free stuff that you can get. And don't go expecting the Wi-Fi to work really well. That's the other thing I'll say. Their Wi-Fi was not good, at least on the ship that I was on the Divina. So much so that I remember the guy at the Wi-Fi desk, I was chatting him up about it, because I'm very interested in how good a ship's Wi-Fi is. And he was like, yeah, please don't talk about our Wi-Fi on your cruise vlog. Like, it's just, that's not gonna go well. Like, just skip over that if you would. So that'd be my advice for that. Hey, Ted, welcome to the show. Always glad to have you on. And Oren, we've got joining from Houston. And George, you cut your teeth on Carnival. I think that's a great cruise line to start your very first sailing experience on. I almost regret not going around and trying more cruise lines before I settle down, but I'm very happy that I have significant status with the Royal Caribbean. They've treated me extremely good. So I don't think that I would trade that at this point for those experiences. But I'm really glad now that I'm able to get around and try some more of these cruise lines. And it sounds like, George, you got some of the same cruise lines on your list that I have on mine. So I think that is really neat. Marcina, take the time to try the XL and do comparison for your options. So another issue there is me finding the new ships. They're all doing 7-night sailings, Marcina. And I can't do a 7-night sailing all the time. So that's where my problem lies with the newer ships. I mean, that's why I think I got really excited about Utopia of the Seas. Not that I am a big ship fan traditionally. I don't gravitate towards that. But the fact that they were putting a brand new ship doing weekend sailings kind of blows my mind. And so I wanted to go up and try it, get excited about it. I can get on board with it. One thing we didn't talk about earlier, I did some quick math on this. I don't know if you all realize this or not, but when we think through the weekend offerings of Royal Caribbean in particular, I'm just going to say for them, they are greatly increasing the amount of people that can go on a weekend cruise starting in November of next year. So they're going to have Allure of the Seas start doing weekend sailings out of Port Canaveral in November. She's then going to transfer down here to Miami. Utopia is going to pick up in Port Canaveral, where she was. So you're going to have 2 Oasis class ships running weekend sailings in South Florida. And then starting in November, you're going to have which ship is it? I think it's the Liberty of the Seas. It's once again coming back to Fort Lauderdale, Port Everglades, to do weekend sailings. So you're going to have 3 Royal Caribbean ships up and down the east coast of Florida doing weekend sailings. And so the total number for that, I didn't do a total number. So you're looking at Liberty of the Seas is 5,000 max people, Allure is going to be 7,000, and you're looking at Utopia probably going to come in around 7,000 or 8,000 people when you look at their total number of passengers. That is almost 20,000 people that they're going to be trying to fill for a weekend cruise every 3 nights, and then every 4 nights, they're looking to fill up the same amount of people for the 4-night sailings. That is a huge lift in capacity on what the weekend sailings can do. I'll be really curious to see, can they sell that many cabins? Like, that is a lot of cabins for a very short period of time that they need to be turning over constantly. They need literally 40,000 people every week for these 3 ships to keep them at max occupancy and make good revenue off of them. It'll be very interesting to see if they're able to achieve that. I hope that it brings down the price a little bit because the rent's pretty darn high these days. I would love that to come down some. So I'm going to be monitoring that. I will be booking a lot more on Allure of the Seas. I am not, again, a huge fan, but I am looking forward to Coastal Kitchen coming to the weekend sailings so we can not have to buy specially every single time because that's getting pretty pricey these days. So I think the strategy here with Royal Caribbean, and I'm surprised more cruise lines like Carnival hasn't followed suit on this. Royal Caribbean is putting their biggest and best ships on short sailings. And they're doing that because they recognize, I think at least, that a lot of people, the first cruise they ever do is 3 or 4 nights in length. That's it. They just want to try out their waters, get their foot wet, test it some. And so I think that that's why they're putting the best ship there, because when you go on one of these ships, you're like, oh, wow, this is a really nice ship. It's not a Voyager, a Grandeur, a Liberty of the Seas, if you will, which is one of their lower tier ships, I would say, these days, just because of refurbishment. But I think that they want people to come and fall in love with cruising, love their very first experience, because they did research that showed that X percentage of people do their very first sailing on these short sailings. They want it to be a good short sailing. And I think the counterpart to that is on a short sailing, you're not able to do it all. I made a whole video on why I think Oasis-class ships are really not cut out to do weekend sailings. But I think part of that, you're not going to be able to do it all. There is no way that you can do everything an Oasis-class ship has to offer on a weekend sailing. And so hopefully, I think Royal Caribbean is thinking that's going to incentivize people to be like, we should really go back to that ship because I didn't get a chance to do X, Y, and Z. Let's now go back to Royal Caribbean and test out one of these really big cruise lines and see what that's like. My personal take on what their strategy is there. Jay Lee, I think me and you are talking the same language there. Weekend sailings are a premium. So if you're looking at the per cost amount that you have to pay for a cruise ship or cruise line, a 7-day per day should be cheaper than the weekend. I pay a premium per day to go on a weekend sailing. It's all that I can do right now. I apologize. I would love to do more. But you do pay more for that experience. You are also more likely to buy the drink package on that experience. The specialty restaurants stay pretty full in that experience because you were only there for 3 days. So you're trying to do it all and live your best life. And all of that comes with money that you got to pay for. And Royal Caribbean is doing a very good job on that. I don't remember the cost, Quaxon, of what I paid for the Wi-Fi on that ship. I don't think that I actually bought their premium package because like most cruise lines, they've got like an intro package, their basic, and then a premium. And I think I did that on what the Wi-Fi guy was telling me. He was like, it's no better. Like, you don't need to pay the extra money because you're not going to get anything extra. It's going to be the same service, just you wind up paying more for it. John, have I tried Norwegian? You just got off the Joy. I was really impressed. Admittedly, and not on RC cruise yet, but a huge fan of Celebrity. I have not done a Norwegian cruise yet. And interestingly, I say interestingly a lot. I'm realizing these things. I have Joy on my calendar for 2024 as a tentative. My spreadsheet, the green is what I'm booked into. Yellow, I have a few cruise ships that I'm monitoring to see what I want to go on. The Joy is going to start doing some short sailings here in South Florida that I may be able to hop onto, but it'd be similar to what I was talking about earlier with Carnival that, I don't think the Norwegian is going to become my go-to cruise line just because I'm really happy right now focusing in on the four cruise lines that I like a lot. So I wouldn't mind going on Norwegian. I think that is probably one of the closest experiences from what I've heard to Royal Caribbean. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. If The Joy had on, and I already checked this, and it does not, had those studio cabins and that suite kind of lounge to it for a solo cruiser. I would be more inclined to jump over to Norwegian pretty quickly. But since I got to get a normal room and go through all that, I would be doing it just for the experience. So it would probably be one of those like Brandon does Norwegian tours. But I would do it. I don't have anything against any cruise line. I am game for any cruise line. But I'm not prioritizing Norwegian and Carnival at this point. Trying to stick with the 4 cruise lines that I really like, and those seem to be treating me good at this point. But things change. I was with Royal for ages and only did them, and now I'm doing 4 cruise lines. Who knows next year how many cruise lines I'll be doing. And Kevin, thank you. It sounds like you did not come into the earlier part of this video, that the choppiness was just absolutely horrible. But I'm glad you got to come here earlier and that the choppiness seems to be taking care of itself at this point. And Ted, you are in Indianapolis. I love it. Let's see what you got here, Christine. So I would not be surprised if that is absolutely what the Utopia of the Seas is trying to do. So it is no secret to anyone that Disney Cruise Line, they charge a ton for their cruises, right? They have limited capacity, and the brand and the reputation for stellar service, really good food, goes above and beyond. And they have a ton of children. And what people are doing, and they've been doing this for a while now, is they're going to Disneyland, staying on property, and then they're leaving there and doing a weekend on the Disney ship that's up in Canaveral. I don't remember which one it is. There actually was one in Miami today, but they do both. They'll do Disneyland, stay on land, and then they're going to go do the Disney Cruise Line. And it's worked out really, really good for Disney because it's a natural progression or segue into a relaxing experience to get people back home. Or maybe they do the opposite. They come, they do the cruise first, and then they go on land. But they have made a killing on their weekend sailings. Like, the prices for that is absurd. And I would absolutely bet that, Royal Caribbean's looking at that Disney Cruise Line and being like, they're onto something over there with all these kids that they have, with all this money that they're making. And their ships are nothing to write home about. Their ships are very well maintained. They're very well kept, but there's nothing special to them. They're actually on the smaller side. So by putting Royal's newest and best ship there to compete head to head with that, I think it's going to do really good doing very similar sailings. And they've also got Perfect Day Coco Cay. So the private island for Disney, it's a great private island. I actually did a Disney cruise in 2015, I think, and got together. They've probably changed it up since then. But it is a normal private island. It's nothing like the, I'll call it commercialized Coco Cay, which has a lot to do, especially if you're coming with kids and families. There's tons of things that you can do and buy there. So I think, Christine, you are very much so on point with something there. And Tony, I love the Navigator of the Seas. So here, I've been doing weekend sailings for ages. So it's, you all have been following my journey since Freedom of the Seas has been here. But back in the day, it was Empress, Majesty, Navigator was, and then Enchantment came in actually to do weekend sailings. And then they gave us Navigator after the Enchantment. And so I've spent a lot of time on Navigator of the Seas after she was amped. They put her into the weekend cruise waters, if you will, and beautiful ship, love the size. I have so many amazing memories from the crew, the staff on board there. I'm not sure how long it's gonna stay over in LA though. I'm looking at the cruise fare for it, and this is all that I'm going on. It is suppressed, considering everywhere else is charging so much more money. So another good tip, if you're looking for a cheap cruise coming up, look to Navigator of the Seas in Los Angeles for the fall of this year. It is much cheaper. Weather is also going to be much cooler. That's one thing I did not anticipate when I went over there. It is going to be a cold cruise, but it's going to be a reasonably priced cruise. And so that just has me going, I don't know how long it's gonna stay over there. I hope that it does, because I know so many people that live on the West Coast who cannot or just don't want to make that trip over here to the East Coast. It's also cost prohibitive. Like, you got to buy a pretty substantial plane ticket to make that happen. So I hope that you can keep it, but I would just be cautiously watching that. Adam, thank you. It is the Disney Wish that is up in Port Canaveral running 3/4s, weekends, and then 4-night sailings. Navigator, I love it. My Navigator fans are here. So this was something, Sam, that I talked about kind of last week on will Royal Caribbean be building smaller ships? There is this, I'm going to call it vicious rumor going around. That's what I'm hearing from Facebook groups is that there are captains in captain's corners. That's where you get up and talk to the captain. You can ask them questions, and they give you a spill about how long they've been doing it, tell some stories, make some jokes. There's some of them that are now talking about a new class of ship that's going to come out. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Utopia might be the last Oasis class ship. There may be one more coming, but that's 6 in a class, which is a lot for Royal Caribbean. Normally their classes have 4 or 5. And they've now got this Icon class that they're also building. They've got several of them on order. There's now talk about, hey, well, what's next? You always got to keep thinking about what's next. And to build a cruise ship takes a little bit of time, apparently. So the rumor is that they're going to have this new class called the Discovery class. And with the Discovery class, it is supposed to be a smaller ship, all rumored, and it will hold around 3,000 people, probably double occupancy. I imagine if it did max capacity, it'd probably come out around 4,000, which is teeny in the Royal Caribbean fleet. It is the size of like a Grandeur of the Seas at that point, I guess. It is small. So I don't know if that's going to happen. I am very hesitant to believe this rumor. It doesn't make sense to me, because when I think of Royal Caribbean's business strategy, every single time they have ever made a cruise ship, they have made it bigger. Every single cruise ship has been bigger and better. For them to now pivot and say, you know what, let's not do that anymore. Let's really focus in on the smaller cruise lines, the Discovery lines, which admittedly, if that is truly the name and they're able to go on discoveries or expeditions and things of that nature, that's not Royal Caribbean's business strategy right now. Their strategy is family, people across a broad generation, charging a lot of money. I don't see where these smaller ships, which will have to be more luxurious to make good money, fits in their portfolio. It doesn't make sense to me. I do worry that the older ships, the Grandeurs of the Seas, Serenade, Brilliance, Jewel, like all of those, Enchantment, they're not going to be around for long. Like, with the capacity being increased so much, and we just talked about weekend capacity, but if I think about all the Icon classes that are on order, I think there's 2 more that are supposed to come out. We're going to be launching another Oasis class. And they're not getting rid of any ships. They're growing their fleet portfolio by leaps and bounds. So it'll be really neat to see what happens to the small ships, and do they continue to fit into the Royal Caribbean portfolio. I wouldn't be surprised if they split it in half. I made the April Fool's video on that. I think there's a lot that can happen with smaller ships, but do I for one moment believe Royal Caribbean is going to pivot from what their strategy has been all these years and go to a smaller ship? No. As much as I would love that, I think that that's why I'm so adamant of not believing it, because for me to believe it and then for them not to do that, I think that I'd be heartbroken, because I love my smaller ships. And so I am so staunchly against this rumor being true, because if I believe it and then it falls through, I would be devastated because I would love that so much, and I just don't think that it's gonna happen. We also know that Captain Corners have gotten their information wrong before. So they used to say that the Icon of the Seas was going to be somewhere between a Quantum size and Oasis class size. It was going to fall in the middle. Nope, it skyrocketed past the Oasis class ships. So it got that one totally wrong. Hey, Ashley. You're right on that. So if you were going over to Freedom of the Seas, they do not have a Broadway show. That's something that when I went to Independence for the first time, Indy for short, I didn't realize that they actually did have, is it Grease? I'm blanking on the name of it. It's not Grease, it's Saturday Night Fever? It's one of those. It could be Saturday Night Fever, which I really liked. It was a great show. Freedom of the Seas has a classic singers and dancers show. So you're going to get Masquerade if you're going to be there on a 4-night, or you're going to do Invitation to Dance if you are there on a 3-night. If you're on there on Fortnite, you'll also get invitation to dance as well. Every now and again, they'll flip-flop that, so it could change, which I actually liked. When they, finally put Masquerade on the weekend, I was like, oh, it's a new show I get to watch. And they were like, it's not a new show. It's been on the ship. We just haven't been doing it for you. So I'm glad that they're doing that. But the shows are good. The cast, they've had really good cast members over there, and I got to know a lot of them really, really well. They are fantastic people, so go and check the shows out. One thing that I always say, if you're worried you're not going to like a show, sit in the back and leave. Like, I am one of those people that if I do not like the comedian, the special guest, whatever it may be, I will up and leave your show. But I try to sit in the back, not to make a scene, kind of be inconspicuous, and it's just me. I'm not a party of like 5 or 10 people getting up and leaving the show. But I think that was something that came with my independence around solo cruising. Is I would be sitting in places and I'm like, I don't want to be here. Why am I watching this? Like, this is boring. I don't like it, or whatever have you. And I would find like, so why am I doing it? I didn't have a good answer for that. So eventually I learned to just start doing what I enjoyed and what I wanted to do. And so I would get up and leave. If I'm not enjoying myself somewhere, or if I am tired and falling asleep, there's no reason why I have to force myself to do anything. I'm a solo cruiser. Like, if I don't want to do it, I don't have to turn to my right, turn to my left, ask people, get permission. I just don't do it. So that's something that I've really enjoyed, is the freedom of solo cruising. Funny how I just use freedom and independence a lot there talking about these ships. Oh, Sandy, this is a great topic of hot debate. When I say it's not really debate, they need a refurb on Liberty like nobody's business. It needs what they used to call amplification for that class of ship. It needs to be amplified and go through a fairly extensive renovation. It is still a great ship. You can go there and have a great time, but she's dated. She's needing some repairs. It was supposed to happen during COVID. You all know how that went. They didn't have a lot of capital, didn't have a lot of money, got it pushed off. She will not be going to refurbishment now until 2026. That is a long time away for a cruise line. 2 more years for a cruise line it's like dog years almost, like multiply by 7. That is a long time for that ship not to have a refurbishment. So I really hope that it works out well, but she needed it like 2 years ago when it was supposed to happen, and they've now pushed it off. So I hope that she gets one, and she gets the right level of refurbishment. I don't think just just paint the outside of it. You need to not do lipstick on a pig on this one. She needs some work. Hopefully it'll come through for her, and I'm overly critical of it. I know it, but it's because I was spoiled on Freedom. I was spoiled on Navigator, amplified ships that are beautiful, and she's doing the same exact routes for the same exact price, at least when she's doing weekends. I know she's actually up in Bayonne right now. She went up to New Jersey not too long ago. Hey, Corey, welcome to the channel. If you've only done Symphony, I would encourage you to try doing a smaller ship. And even when I say smaller, Freedom of the Seas, Liberty of the Seas that we're talking about, Independence here, they're probably 40%. No, hold on, let me do my math right. They're 60% of the size of an Oasis class ship. So it'll feel like the ship is half the size. But they have ships even smaller than that. And I love them, and I love their itinerary, where they're able to go. They are really, really great ships. You get to meet a lot of great people. The crew doesn't move around as hustle and bustle. They can actually spend time with you, getting to know you. They talk a little bit more. I enjoy my small ships. Will you visit the Royal Beach Club in Nassau? Of course. I will definitely go and visit it if they wind up building it. That beach club in Nassau, so for those of you who haven't heard, Royal Caribbean is looking at building a beach club on the little island on Paradise Island. So the cruise ships are docked in Nassau. That's where the lighthouse is, that strip of land. That's where they're looking at building this beach club. And it's coming to a lot of legal cases right now. It is in the court system in the Bahamas. The Paradise Island folks don't like it. Certainly the people at Atlantis, Baha Mar don't. And the commercial residents say, so people aren't going to be coming into Nassau at all. We're going to be losing business now because of this private island. I also, and this is my personal take on it, I am personally not a fan of Royal Caribbean doing this. To me, This is an overstep of a cruise line having way too much influence in one of the countries that they support and that they give business to. And you know that NASA has been a really good proponent. It was the first place that opened up for COVID. They've been great to the cruise lines. I feel like doing this is an overreach and an overstep. I'd much rather see the Bohemian government, and this is the problem with this probably, take control of that land, and it's already the Queen's land. It is already owned by the Bohemian government, and turn it into their own day club where they can infuse Bohemian culture. They can give us, we're gonna have to have it staffed by people that work in the Bahamas. There's rules and regulations that dictate that. But I would love for it to almost be not only a beach experience, but a cultural experience. As we talked about, most people go on a weekend cruise for their very first cruise. In this case, if your first cruise is a weekend sailing, you're going to a private island and you're going to Nassau. Your first country, a lot of people's first country is the Bahamas. I'd love to see some numbers on this, on how many people's first country is the Bahamas because of cruise lines. And with that, if you go to a private island, you're getting that cruise line's culture. You're not getting a Bohemian culture. You're getting Royal Caribbean's culture. You're getting Norwegians. You're getting Disney's. It is a sterilized and sanitized environment to ensure you have an amazing time, but it's going to look and feel a lot like the ship that you're on. I would love for people that go to Nassau to actually feel like they've been to a foreign country, to get to meet some people, see some of the traditions, try some of the food. I think that that's really important to culture, if you will. It can still be a beach club, but I would love it to be run by the Bohemians. I think of Puerto Plata, which Royal Caribbean used to go to a lot more these days. Now it's more of a Virgin ship and a few Royal Caribbean ones. I think they've done a fantastic job there, trying to give a good mix and feel. It's very commercialized. It's run by by the port, but I feel like that's a better experience when it's just run by the actual people of the Bahamas or the government versus a cruise line soapbox done. Will I still go? More than likely. Will I pay $300 though for the day to go over there? That's going to be the question. How much are they going to charge for that experience? That's where I might be a strong no. I might just sit on the boat because, by the way, this private beach club that they're going to have, you're going to have 20,000 people lined up on one side of a ship looking at you. You are not going to be private by any stretch of the imagination. So is the Discovery class actually something for celebrity? It could be. I mean, the Edge class ships are a newer ship, and it is a decent size. I would say that I probably would really gravitate towards the Edge class of ship. I have not tried them yet because they don't do short sailings, and the longer sailings that I've done on Celebrity have been in more exotic locations. So I've not had a chance to do those, but I have friends that swear by the Celebrity Edge class. They think that it's fantastic. I did not know that, Corey. MSC is getting into the luxury small ship market that does the Galapagos. That does not surprise me. When you think of MSC, we think of the offerings here in the US, but they've got a really large fleet. They go to a lot of places that Royal doesn't, Norwegian doesn't, Carnival doesn't. They go to some really interesting destinations. And so when I look for longer cruises, I look to MSC. For this one, I wonder how much they're going to charge for a Galapagos experience. Cruises to the Galapagos, I don't know if you all have looked at this. They are insane expensive. So you've got Celebrity that's got a few ships with their Flora. You've got probably a few more private ones. But I'll be curious how much they're going to charge for that experience. Normally they're smaller yacht-like ships, but they go for $10,000 to $20,000 for the week. Not quite my budget for the entire year of cruising. I still couldn't afford it. I'd have to stop cruising and save up for an entire year and then some to be able to afford this. But I will definitely check it out now that you said that. I'm very interested in it. So John, booking back to back. So a lot of people always, forget that this is a strategy that you can use for the weekend sailings. You don't have to come for just a weekend. You don't have to come just for a 7-day cruise. You can extend it as long as you want to. So if you don't want to fly for just a 3-night sailing, I get it. They're quick. Trade-off value isn't quite worth it. You can certainly stay on the ship for another cruise. Downside to that, you can get a 7-night. But I would say if you're coming for the 7-night, you might as well stay for the next 3rd night. Do 3 back-to-backs. That used to be my favorite way of cruising on Freedom. back in COVID days is I'd come and stay for a 10-day segment, is the turnover days, as they're called, where you've got to get off the ship and come back on. They're kind of a wasted day because you got to go to the lounge, you got to wait, you got to walk off, you got to come back. It's not stressful. I mean, they make it actually a really seamless and streamlined process, but you're going to lose essentially up to about 11 o'clock that morning before you're actually free to go and do anything. Just something to take into account when you're doing back-to-backs. 2 visits to CocoCay, you can't go wrong there. Twice to Nassau. Are they, John, do you know this? Did you actually book the beach club? Is that out yet or able to book? I wouldn't think that it is just yet, but honestly, I haven't been looking for it. Mr. McCartney, welcome, Brian. Where you been? Am I getting my numbers wrong on this? So that's max capacity that I was quoting. Would probably be around 4,000. They didn't say if it was double capacity or max capacity. Interesting, they haven't said what max capacity is for the Utopia of the Seas yet either. They've only told us that it's going to have about, where is there coming, 5,600 double occupancy. But if you max it out, they've got a lot of rooms like the Icon does that take 4 or 5. That number could skyrocket. It is still a good number of people. The height would be an issue. Yeah, Tampa and Baltimore, you can't get some of these ships into because of the bridges that they've got to go under. Sam being a big fan of the smaller ships. Salman, is Virgin or Celebrity better for Mediterranean? That is a great question. I would say both are going to be a great experience. I like both cruise lines a lot. It would come down to, do you want a more party crowd or not, in my opinion. When I think of the cruises that I've done on Virgin so far, they're 5 nights, not necessarily a weekend cruise. They're like Wednesday to Monday. It's a party crowd. There's a lot of high energy stuff there. Virgin brings high energy. Their entertainment team brings high energy. You're going to have a really good time if you're into high energy events. If you go to Celebrity, on the other hand, you're going to find a much more subdued crowd. Doesn't mean that it's a bad time, but you're not going to find the DJs. You're not going to find the pool parties. You're not going to find all that stuff that you would on Virgin. So I would say that it's not necessarily based on ship. I personally like the food better on Virgin voyages. The food on Celebrity is fine. I ate in Blue the only time that I've been there, and that was a great experience. But the food on Virgin is still better than that, I think. So up to you. It's a toss situation. I'd also look at the itinerary and see if there's places that you really just want to go to. I think in the Mediterranean, if you're going that far, you want to make sure the ship's going to go somewhere you actually want to go. But I don't think that you can go wrong with either of those two, Salmon. That actually might not be your name. I'm curious, but I'm glad that the names are back, by the way. I was responding to comments. You all might not know this, but I'll go through and spend, like an hour responding to a bunch of comments and get a ton of them done. And it stopped putting people's names up there. It was putting the and sign and then what your user handle is, I guess. Like mine would be @TheWeekendCruiser. And I was really annoyed by that. I like seeing your names. It's funny how many of the names I recognize and I feel like I've grown attached to. So it's really neat to be able to see that. It's true, Brian. That's an interesting way of looking at it. So this Utopia will be the first Oasis class not to be the largest ship in the world because it will be the Icon of the Seas. Though, which one's going to come out first? Is it the Icon or is it Utopia? It's probably going to be the Icon of the Seas if I'm thinking this through. So you're right. It's not going to be the biggest cruise ship in the world when it comes out. It will, however, be the biggest of the class. So they are making it like 0.2 meters larger than Wonder of the Seas. 360 meters is what it's coming in at. It will be slightly bigger, large enough just to say that they made it bigger. Again, why I don't think they're doing the Discovery class. Kevin, you have to. I think that once people learn, and I need to make more videos on solo cruising because I get so many people who I feel like are inspired by the sheer fact that you can go on a vacation by yourself. It's almost like they've never thought about it. But I will tell you that cruising solo is one of the best things that you can do for your own mental health because it teaches you how to do you. Everything that you do is because you want to do it. You choose to do it. And once I figured all that out, like my entire mentality has shifted on I get a choice. And it's not like I didn't know that I didn't have choices before. But somehow or another, it just drives home that fact. And going on a vacation by yourself, whether it's on a cruise or on land, is one of the most freeing things that you can truly do. And I certainly have a passion to it. I love vacationing. And I'll do it by myself. If I can find good friends of mine that want to come, I'm totally game. But I don't mind getting on a plane, getting on a ship, and taking off by myself. Ashlyn saying that Liberty has really good slides. This is something that I have only ever done once. I've been on, 100 different Royal Caribbean cruises. I think I'm at like 112 cruises I've been on now. I have only ever done the slides, I'll say twice actually, now that I think about it. I've done it once on Wonder of the Seas, and I've done it once on the Disney ship. They had the tube that you would sit in, and you take the inner tube, and you would go through it. That was the one that I've done, or the only 2 times I've ever done those. The sports decks are kind of wasted on me. I don't really take good advantage of those. Grandeur of the Seas, Bill, I mean, I've been on Grandeur of the Seas a few times. I took her out of Baltimore, actually. I boarded her during the winter, and there was snow on the ship. Like, it was pretty odd to be boarding a cruise ship when the deck is covered in snow. But she was an old ship even back then. I don't know what's going to happen to the older ships. Maybe this is a replacement strategy that they've run their life, and they're going to be able to spin those off and bring on this new class of ships. That would be probably the biggest win that we could have. As much as I love those older ships, I mean, I feel like they're really tough to maintain, and to keep them up these days is probably costing Royal Caribbean a ton of money. Ashlyn, Haiti was your first national or outside of the country experience. And you know what? If you went to Labadee, you really didn't get a Haitian experience. I mean, you got to speak some people speaking Creole to you or French to you going through the straw market area. But again, you're getting a very sterilized and sanitized version of Haiti. So Labadee may not have been around in 2002, now that I think about it. That might not have been something that you could do back then. I actually personally would love to go to Haiti and see actual Haiti. I've been to Labadee, so I counted off on my list of going to Haiti, but I want to go and actually feel like I've truly been to Haiti, because that I don't feel like I have. Do I ever just stay on the ship and enjoy a quiet time? Absolutely. So my mood can shift greatly on cruise ships. Sometimes I'm Mr. People person. I want to talk to everybody. I want to be in the middle of it. And then there are other times where I want the exact opposite. Like if everybody's going that way, I'm going to run as fast as I can in the opposite direction. And I definitely will do that. If I'm in a port that I've been to often, Nassau or Coco Cay, it's more likely. If I'm in a new port or somewhere that I don't go to often, I'll probably still make an effort and be a true tourist, get off, see the place. I will say Coco Cay is the one where I've started enjoying it more than I used to. And I've been to Coco Cay probably 100 times. And I normally used to always get off. Like I'd be in my chair by 10 o'clock. It was my chair. I was there every Saturday. And now I'm starting to find myself spending more time on the ship. Some of it's because I want to maybe shoot a video when everybody gets off or something like that, and I just don't want to mess with it. But it is really nice being able to enjoy the pools and the hot tubs when there's not that many people there. But I am starting to see more and more people starting to stay on the ship, even in Coco Cay now. That's a newer phenomenon that I've started to notice probably over the last 4 or 5 months. And I think it's the same effect that people that go to Nassau often has is, if you've gone to Nassau 5 or 6 times, you may feel like you've seen it. I'd argue there's still some more stuff you can do there, but you probably feel like Nassau, you're good just staying on the ship. A lot of people follow that advice. I think that there's a segment of that people go, kind of done Coco Cay. Like I know what it has to offer. I've seen it all. I don't necessarily need to do Coco Cay. So I think a lot of people are starting to stay on the ship, especially, this is one where I'm surprised more people don't do this. If you've got children, and you did not buy them a $100 entrance to the water park per person, you can stay on the ship and try to hide it from them. Because if you go off that ship and you are walking directly towards
the water park, they're going to want to go in. And if you don't have a ticket, that's a tough conversation, I think, for kids. So I'm surprised more parents don't, play that card a few times. Brian, what you got? It took 7 years of cruising for me to set foot in the Bahamas. You're probably not alone in that, Brian. I think Bahamas is probably one of the most misunderstood places, and they haven't tried as much as I would like for them to. They've got some wonderful people there. They've got some hidden gems that are there. I actually got one video that I need to edit, and so I hope that you all make an effort to watch it when I finally get around to doing it. But I went to a restaurant called the New Duff down by the Fish Fry or Airwalk Cay, and had Duff, which I had never heard about. I've been there so many times, and I didn't know what Duff was. It is a dessert pastry indigenous to the Bahamas. It's true Bohemian food. When people think of Bahamas, they'll think of rum cake, which, take it or leave it. I'm not a huge rum cake fan because the rum, it's too much for me. I just don't like the rum in it. Not that I don't drink. It's fine with that. I'll eat a rum cake because I like cake. But if it sets my mouth on fire, that's not the experience I'm going for. But Duff is something that is true to the Bahamas, and they make it a lot of different styles. And I went to the New Duff and sat down and tried so much good food. They were so kind to me there and giving me a tour, showing me what they do. It was a really, really good experience, and I can't wait to get the video made. I hope that it turns out, because I'm still coming into video production. That is something that I am not the best at. My video quality, I think I could step up my game eventually, but between a full-time job and all that, it just hasn't got around to it. But there are some great places in the Bahamas, and just sometimes you got to find out about them. I have not been to the new Nassau port since it's opened. I would love to. I was trying to find a way to get a behind-the-scenes tour before it opened, and that did not work through. I actually got in touch with the head of the port in Nassau. I was introduced to him by a very good friend of mine that was a crew member on this ship. And he's a great guy, very responsive. Like, I'll send him a message and he responds to me, which kind of just blows me away that, the head of the Nassau port will actually respond to me. But I was trying to get a behind the scenes tour, and I have not done that yet. But I would still love to do a walking tour of the brand new port. It looks beautiful from the outside. I hope that it's functionally working well, that they've moved the straw market over. They've got like what looks like an amphitheater. So I'm really excited to get back and try that out, Corey. Oh, well, you're killing my mood here, Adam. So Adam, and I think that I've known this. So I'm trying to remember where this was. I was in Cozumel during COVID when cruises shut down. I still traveled, so I went to Mexico. I was spending time in Cozumel, and I met a gentleman who actually worked for the port of Cozumel, and he was a designer of cruise ship ports. And I just thought that it was one of the most fascinating jobs out there, because I never thought that there's a whole team of people, an architectural team, that has to bring to light what one of these cruise ports look like and what all they take into account. But they could very well be owned by private groups trying to make money. That's what we're all trying to do, right? Make a dollar. Hey, Scotty. Glad you made it on. John, let's see what you got here. Just booked the Edge. Congratulations on that. I know that'd be great. And a magic carpet retreat. I mean, I would gladly take an invite. That sounds like a great room to have. And I love that you put reasonable in quotation marks. Reasonable is one of those things that everybody considers to be different, right? So it's something I run into in making these videos is a lot of people want to say, oh, Brandon, is this worth it? I mean, I never know how to answer that. So that's why you find my videos probably a lot more fact-based, more informative, because I don't know what I think is worth it is going to be what you think is worth it, or vice versa. One person, I'm in a Delta SkyMiles group, and it kind of equivalates to this, is somebody asked a question about first class or not going in first class. And somebody made a very mean-spirited comment, it's the internet, it happens, about, that they can't, only rich people take first class. And I was like, look, it has nothing to do with people being first class. I did jump into this in a very kind way. I was like, you can't think of who sits in a higher scale environment, whether it's a suite room or it's first class, it's people that are well off or well to do. That's not necessarily the case. It is just they may value it differently. So I may be comfortable putting 10% of my income into first class or going into a suite. You might want to put 20%, and those numbers are even going to be different. But I definitely know a lot of people that don't have amazing money that will splurge on going on a suite. Heck, I might be one of those people. We'll splurge on the suite because that's important to us. But for others, they may look at us like we're crazy because they want to do the interior. And there's also, by the way, the counter side to this, there's billionaires out there who would choose to stay in the interior room, save a buck, versus going up to the suite. So, I always find it really difficult to answer questions around what's it worth, are things reasonable? Get those questions all the time because that's what people are trying to rationalize in their head. And so I try to equip them with knowledge and information that will get them there. Sam, definitely appreciate the only 28 thumbs up. Well, come on, guys. We can do better than that. So the thumbs up, I mean, whether it's this video or any video that you see on YouTube, if you are enjoying it, if you are watching, please always make sure you do that. It means a ton to content creators like myself. So Sam, thank you for the reminder on that. Icon is coming out first, so I've got Adam and Brian reminding me of that one. Looks like Bill is going on his first weekend cruise when you normally do longer sailings. Oh, perfect. 55 days till independence of the seas. The first thing that I'll say that you're going to want to do, maybe a little bit differently, show up early. Try your best to get to an early boarding time. It is only 3 days. It will fly by on you. So if you can get there and be one of the first people on the ship, you will maximize your time and the value that you're going to get out of that. I would also say that if you want dinner reservations at a special restaurant, try to make those in advance. The shows, they're not going to fill up. The evening shows are going to be more popular though. So the second show. The first show is normally really quiet if you want to go to do that. If you're doing a weekend, you're probably doing Coca-Cola, you're doing Nassau, so you don't have a sea day that you need to worry about with how busy is the pool's going to be, because then I'd give you some advice and tips on where to find chairs and do things like that, but you're going to be getting off. If you go to Coca-Cola, get off by probably 10:30. It is a later crew than you're going to find on a 7-night because they were up the night before at the bar having a good time. If you are somebody who enjoys nightlife, who likes to dance, who likes to have a drink, it is going to be a fantastic cruise. Go, have a good time, and just enjoy yourself. And that's the biggest thing to it. I mean, they are not that much different. There's not a formal night. That's probably something I should call out. And I would say the exact opposite of that is it is probably a more casual cruise than you have ever been on. You will see people dressed in almost whatever's below casual. I don't know what type of clothing is pre-casual, but you're going to see a lot of that on this sailing as well. Kevin, you went to the new Duff. Looks like you liked it. So you brought one home. So they actually gave me a few of them that I brought home as well. I've actually got one left in my fridge or in my freezer. They are fantastic. And so I need to just make that video. I've been putting it off. I think some of it is just the fear of not having a really good, I don't know how I'm going to produce it. Like I've got video editing. I'm great at talking cruise ships. You all know that I love cruise ships. I can talk to you all day long. And by the way, thank you for hanging out with me on a Saturday to chat through cruising. This has been a lot of fun for me. I love coming on here, hanging out with you all and talking about cruise ships. That is something I could do day in, day out. So thank you for humoring me and joining me in some of this banter. I don't even know where I was going with that thought. Sorry, blanked. Brian, what do you got here? Well, yeah, hurricanes, that's a big one that's out there. Yeah, hurricanes throw off everything. Everything. One thing I was going to talk about earlier, and I totally blanked on it. I got too much into comments and questions, which I love. But I was going to talk about canceled cruises a few times. So we cancel cruises all the time. Royal Caribbean, all of them. So Explore the Seas just made news once again because they chartered it out in 2024. So if you book your cruises well in advance, you probably have had many cruises canceled. I have had many cruises canceled because they wind up chartering them. That happens later on. And it is a risk of going on a cruises. Your cruise might get canceled. It might also happen for all sorts of reasons, whether it's public unrest. We saw that in Israel, in Egypt. We had to pull out of there pretty quickly. You've seen hurricanes that come through that can devastate the islands, and the ships don't really have anywhere to go, where they've got to delay the sailing or maybe cancel it altogether. There's a lot of things that come up that would cause a cruise to be canceled. It's never fun when it happens, but it's definitely something that's out there. Mitchell, you made it on. Hey there, Mitchell. Thank you for joining. This is one time you missed it, or did not miss it. And Kevin, below casual is swimwear. I would say that on a 3-night weekend sailing, the term swimwear is also a very loose term. I don't know what pre-casual swimwear is, but you're also going to see a lot of that. What I'm saying is go with an open mind, and my nose is running, forgive me. Go with an open mind on how people are going to dress on the cruise ship. You're going to see a smorgasbord of what people look like, but what they are wearing, and I would tell this to a lot of people, should not impact your ability to have fun. What somebody else is wearing should not impact you at all, actually. I've got a couple of friends that are probably watching this that, will definitely call out when things don't look up to snuff or up to par. For me, I don't care. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. You go, do what you want to do. I'm going to have a good time regardless of what other people are wearing. And as long as you have that kind of mentality, I think you're going to be in a really, really good shape. But you may see some swimwear in the main dining room. Just giving you a heads up. Corey, we talked about that earlier. The storm on Independence out of Canaveral was ridiculous. I don't know how nobody didn't know that it was coming. I think that was my biggest takeaway is, how did you all not know that a storm like that, of that size and magnitude, was coming up? All right, so this is probably my longest live that I've done. Granted, I feel like I spent the first 20 minutes of this thing figuring out technology. So I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this up, give my voice a little bit of a break. Again, thank you all for joining me on a Saturday. This means the world to me that you all want to come and hang out with me here in my living room, look at the ship models, which, by the way, I made a video going a tour of the ship models and the crystal blocks per request of several people, so that's going to be coming out soon. But I look forward to chatting with everybody very, very soon. I'm heading to North Carolina tomorrow and then off to New York for work for a couple of weeks. So you might start seeing some different living arrangements. I won't be taking the ships with me for any lives that I might have the chance to do, but I'm still going to try to come and hang out with you all as often as possible. All right, everybody. This is Brandon, the Weekend Cruiser. Hope to see you on a Weekend Cruise soon.